Hi, I'm Peyton, and I'm the author of The Masks Our Origins, a superhero origin story told from multiple perspectives. In this video, I thought I'd read the prologue of the book. So let's get started. I'd like to apologize in advance for any mistakes I might make. I'm not perfect out loud reader, so just bear with me. Thanks. Okay, here we go. Scattered whispers echoed throughout the crowd. Men, women, even children stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes locked on the two most famous women in Height City as they battled once again. Red and blue lights flashed across the buildings. Every shop and office within a 2-block radius had their doors locked and their shutters closed. The owners were either in hiding or somewhere in the crowd, probably on the edge of their seats. Police officers kept people from getting too close. Civilians reported everything with their phones. Some were live on Instagram and other social media platforms. Who knows how many followers were tuning in? News vans from every major channel were parked on either side of the road. Hundreds of reporters shoved their way to the front, desperate to narrate each detail of the fight. Alice stomped her foot, trying to see over everyone's shoulders. It was useless. She could only see the sparks. She had to get closer, but how? Could she push her way through? Would anyone step aside to let her pass? An idea popped into her head. It wasn't practical, but it'd work, hopefully. She zipped up her ragged olive green sweatshirt and pulled the hood over her head. She crept by Savannah Ann, a reporter for Channel 6. Savannah Ann, at that moment, was describing the scene and listing the most popular battles between Glisten and Destroyer. There were a lot. Focused on getting closer to the fight, Alice dove between two men. One was sturdy and muscular, like a wrestler, while the other one was skinny. They didn't notice her, but she heard them taking bets on whether or not Glisten would land the next punch. How could that even be a question? Her hands and knees barely grazed the ground as she scurried toward the action. She didn't want to miss anything. Alice, the determined 12-year-old, wasn't supposed to be there. It was dangerous. Being near Destroyer could mean death. She'd proven several times to the public that she was ruthless and heartless. She'd often raid thriving businesses with her gang. They took what they liked: money, jewels, expensive weapons, knickknacks, accessories, artifacts, food, appliances, and destroyed the things that bored them. Destroyer struck fear in the hearts of those who couldn't defend themselves. On more than one occasion, she was reported to have murdered the city's inhabitants. She didn't have boundaries or limits. She smiled as her victims screamed, and when they begged for their lives, she laughed. But Alice couldn't help it. This was too exciting, too important. Her parents didn't know she snuck out. She didn't plan it. It all happened so fast. She'd been wanting to witness Glisten in action for months, years even. This was her chance. As soon as her family finished dinner, her mom made a casserole. Alice went to her bedroom. She debated doing homework, then decided to try calling her best friend Jess. An alert popped up on her phone. Destroyer spotted at City Hall. Confirmed. City council members taken hostage. Mayor Porter is already dead. Glisten is on her way to save the day. Glisten, Height City's superhero, was going to battle her arch enemy, the woman who made Hyde City tremble with her cruel smile, rainbow curls, and a pair of red leather gloves. When the gloves came off, things were rumored to crumble. Alice heard about Destroyer's powers, but she'd never seen them in action. Before a single rational thought could enter her mind, Alice climbed out her bedroom window and ran down the sidewalk, away from her house. Alice finally managed to crawl ahead to the front row. While trying to get back on her feet, she stumbled on the uneven curb, but quickly steadied herself. She smiled. She couldn't believe it. Glisten in action! She could hardly keep herself from jumping up and down. The hero and the villain were stuck in a perfect rhythm, each able to see 10 steps ahead, punching and kicking, swinging and dodging, twirling and cartwheeling. It was majestic. Destroyer moved like a rageful lion determined to rip apart her prey, while Glisten's movements were fast and calculated, like nothing Alice had ever seen. Glisten dodged Destroyer's heel and stumbled backward. She caught herself, adjusted her footing, and shoved her hand out in front of her. Navy blue lightning sparked from the center of her palm, blasting Destroyer into the air. The lightning's heat left a big charred mark on the pavement. Few people cheered. Others waited in silence, eager to see what would happen next. One guy shouted, "That's right! No mercy!" Destroyer wasn't down for long. She hopped to her feet, shaking the dust off. Her rainbow curls were stuck to her face, sweaty and tangled. Her eyes burned with hatred. Her face twisted in anger. She pulled off her gloves and hooked them to her belt. The stakes were raised, and she wasn't backing down. She lunged at her enemy. Glisten ducked, twirled, and kicked Destroyer in the stomach. The villain came back more determined than ever. She screamed like a rabid banshee, attacking Glisten with everything she had. The women locked onto each other in a chaotic whirl of anger and frustration. They'd been battling for years, and still neither of them had really won the war. Nobody knew what started their feud, but Hyde City had always been their battlefield. Alice held her breath. Glisten had won, or at least tied, every fight she ever fought. This one wouldn't be any different. She'd win again. Still, Alice's palms were starting to sweat. She reminded herself to breathe. She reminded herself to breathe. Come on, she whispered. You can do this. Neither woman could land a single punch. They dodged one another's attacks until their movement started to slow. Destroyer swung her arm, but Glisten flipped backward, hand flat on the road, as her legs went above her head and she landed in a crouch. She stood up. Lightning glistened in her eyes and over her body. Navy blue electricity danced across her skin. She lifted her hand, ready to blast Destroyer again, but the villain was too quick. She grabbed Glisten's wrist. No, this wasn't happening. It couldn't be real. The hero's body crumbled. Every finger, limb, and skin cell became ash. The only thing left of Glisten was a black mask. A blood-curdling scream vibrated against Alice's throat. Fog stuffed her mind. All the people, all the noises, everything faded, distant and blurred, a million miles away. Her knees buckled. She knelt on the sidewalk, hands trembling as she bent forward. Hot, salty tears stung her eyes. A sharp ache seized her chest, and she started to hyperventilate. Silence swept over the crowd and consumed the city. Nobody could move or speak. They stood in complete shock as Destroyer took a victorious bow and left them all stare at the pile of ashes. Destroyer succeeded. She killed Hyde City's savior. She killed Alice's mom. And that is the prologue of The Masks: Our Origins. Currently available on Amazon in ebook and paperback form, and available on several other ebook retailers. I'd say it's a pretty cool book. What about you?